Brownsville Minute, a community conscious conversation and a platform that provides information, wellness, love, and unity all on a digital platform. And our goal is to try to make sure that our community residents are informed, conscious, and that we are connecting the dots on a virtual platform. The Brownsville Minute is designed for everyone. Please join us with the Brownsville Minute. Well, hello there, good people. I am so excited to have you join us for another episode of the Brownsville Minute. If you've been watching, this is a series where it is youth-led conversations about mental health and wellness, specifically interviewing subject matter experts to help them to provide tools and resources to help us all to navigate this space that we are needing to be well, needing to normalize conversation about mental health and wellness. My name is Anita Pierce, and I'm the host and producer of the Brownsville Minute. I am excited to present to you a topic that we've been, pretty much discussing with our youth ambassadors. So I am going to not delay because this is a really important discussion and actually a continuation of what we've been discussing over the last few weeks. But you won't see me having these wonderful questions. You will hear it from and being led by our youth leaders. So I'm going to just bring them on.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. And bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Brownsville Minute. My name is Hasan, and I'm a student. Today, we're going to discuss how to be well as a young person. We have experienced a heightened awareness of mental health concerns, and we are seeking tips to assist us in this process of being well and how to navigate. Today's guest speaker will be Mr. Jeremy Godwin. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Can you describe briefly what area you support mental health?
Yeah, so I am an Australian writer and counsellor who creates content all about simple tips for better mental health and well-being. So I work with clients on a one-on-one basis, but I have a weekly podcast called Let's Talk About Mental Health, as well as a weekly YouTube show. And my focus is really about taking my professional knowledge, but also my personal experiences with anxiety and depression, and turning that into simple, practical, and straightforward tips that people can put into practice and give it a try and see what works.
Oh, that is great to hear. And let's start with our first question. Which age of people mostly face mental health, in your opinion?
Look, it's a good question. And really, the short answer is that anyone at any age can experience a mental health issue. What I will say, though, is that there is a greater level of comfort with younger people in actually opening up and talking about mental health issues than there might have been for, say, my generation is fairly comfortable, I think, with it, but older people, certainly seniors, are still getting themselves comfortable with talking about these type of things. But the reality is that it's estimated that in countries like the US and Australia, where I live, that about 21% of us, so just over 1 in 5, will experience mental health issues in any given year, and that almost half of us, so 45% of people, will deal with a mental health issue in our lifetime. So it really doesn't discriminate on the basis of age, and it can affect you no matter where you are.
Thank you. That's a good response. So, does mental health affect women and men differently, or is it the same?
There is a short answer to that question. There's a long answer. The short answer is really no, but there are some mitigating kind of contributing factors. So let me explain what I mean. There is some evidence to suggest that there are higher rates of mental health issues amongst women. However, there are definitely two factors at play that we need to consider with that data. First off, the fact is we have to be honest about the fact that, especially with older generations, women may often tend to be more open about expressing their emotions than some men. And it is thought that the older the person, the more comfortable that a female may be talking to a doctor or a mental health care professional, and the more likely that an older male will try to just kind of keep it quiet and, it's the old expression, man up, and keeping that kind of culture of silence around issues. And so that really does have an effect on whether or not the data is accurate. But secondly, we also have to acknowledge the fact that there can be some different burdens that are faced based on the different gender roles and what individuals' personal life circumstances are. So, for example, there is some evidence to suggest that in some relationships, women may tend to bear the burden of a greater workload, especially if there are children involved, and balancing those commitments with work, that can mean that there's a likelihood that that could lead to burnout a lot more than it might for somebody who maybe doesn't have those responsibilities. Again, I have to be upfront. Like, if it sounds like I'm kind of dancing around the question a little bit, it's because it's a murky question. Realistically, my view of it is no, there's no real difference. The data suggests that there may be, but we're all human. So regardless of biological factors or gender identity, mental illness does not discriminate.
So like it's mostly the same, right? That's what you mean?
The older the male, the less likely they are to actually speak up about having mental health issues. But as you get more and more looking towards the younger generations, regardless of gender, they're more likely to say, yeah, I do have. So I don't believe that there is a real difference. It's just about how willing you are to talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. So like, is there any specific lifestyle can like help symptoms of mental health disorder?
Absolutely. There are plenty of things that you can do. And the simplest things that are often recommended are things around your physical exercise, healthy diet, having quality sleep. And then on top of that is actually making time and prioritizing regular rest and relaxation. So those are kind of your fundamental things. And if you think about it, the body is a machine, and you need to keep that machine well oiled and look after it for it to keep on working. Otherwise, it can become faulty. So those really basic things not only help to look after your physical body, but your physical well-being has a direct impact on your mental well-being and vice versa. But the other thing that I will say in terms of lifestyle changes, and I'm going to be really direct here as well, is one of the biggest things that anyone can do if they are struggling with their mental health is to take an honest look at any kind of negative or unhealthy habits that they might have. One specifically that I can speak from personal experience on is substance use. So alcohol is a depressant. And for me, I've been living with anxiety for about 11 or so years now, or nearly 12. And it wasn't until I quit drinking 4 years ago that I was able to start stabilizing my mental health once and for all. And so any kind of substance use, be it alcohol, anything, is going to have a detrimental change. So if you are having unhealthy coping mechanisms, like I was with alcohol back in the past, definitely making some lifestyle changes and really addressing those issues is going to have a massive, massive impact on your well-being.
As you said, you had faced the anxiety attack. Like, how does it feel like?
In a word, not great would be my starting point. But in terms of the actual physical symptoms, it's very much, it's like a sudden and intense rush of fear, even if there's no immediate threat. And so you might have things like an intense sense of panic, your heart might start racing, it feels like you're losing control, or you might feel overwhelmed, and maybe you feel uncomfortable, or you might even have feelings of dread. And the thing with that, just to kind of take those physical symptoms and underline what is actually happening in the body and the mind when that happens, your brain perceives that there is a threat, whether or not there actually is one. It perceives there to be a threat, and so it floods your body with hormones and like adrenaline, for example, because it is activating your fight, flight, or freeze response to protect you from danger. And when that is happening, you are very, very unlikely to be able to think about things logically and rationally, because you're operating on pure instinct. It's survival mode. And so if you are experiencing those symptoms of potentially a panic attack or an anxiety attack, it's about being able to kind of recognize what's going on, stop, consciously take a pause and label what's happening, and then to breathe gently for at least 10 seconds, up to several minutes if you can. And that allows your rational mind time to catch up with that emotional response that's been happening. That usually can help with, I mean, not all anxiety attacks, but it can help with a very strong percentage of them.
Okay. Yeah. What about medication? Like, meditation. Like, does it help more for some people?
Meditation or
Yeah.
medication? Because I've got
Yeah,
plenty of
both. Like,
opinions on
yeah,
both.
meditation and meditation. Yeah.
Okay, medication, let's start with that. Medication certainly serves a good purpose. And in fact, so I had a breakdown in late 2011, and it was ended up with severe depression and anxiety after that. And it was medication for both, in terms of antidepressants and anti-anxiety medication, that got me through the first few years when it was really severe. And I mean, I honestly say that I owe my life to that medication. However, it came with a lot of really negative side effects. And the reason why I'm highlighting that to answer the question about medication is we have to understand that medication is not a magic pill that you can pop that cures everything. It causes its own set of problems and issues. And it needs to be part of an informed decision that's made, and it needs to be taken into account with all of your lifestyle factors as well. So I think certainly in Western countries like the US and Australia, our medical system is kind of geared towards, here, take a pill, that should take care of it. And I don't believe that that's necessarily the most responsible approach. I think what we should be all doing is taking a really holistic view of our life and saying, what can I make improvements in as a complement to potentially looking at medication, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's absolutely makes sense. There's a lot of information. I never knew that. Thank you.
Yeah, look, it's one of those things that I think we've gotten so used to the fact that it is easy to just like get a prescription for a pill and think that that will take care of everything, but it actually just creates a different set of issues that need to be dealt with. So your other question was about meditation, which is a really good question. And I think meditation's got this kind of reputation that you have to, I don't know, that you have to kind of, spend years and years and years cultivating this sense of real calm and to be able to go sit on a mountaintop and meditate. But realistically, of course, you can do that if that makes you happy, go for your life. But I think the easiest way to look at it is mindfulness rather than meditation. And what mindfulness is, and it's something I've talked about in my podcast, I did an episode on it as well a while ago. It really is about anchoring yourself in the present moment and consciously being present, even if that's just for a 5-minute period. One of the easiest ways that I like to practice mindfulness is if I'm having a really challenging day and if the weather's decent, which it isn't today, but I like to go and sit on my back step and just breathe and focus on what's going on around me with wildlife and just look at the clouds, going across the sky and just be in that moment for a few minutes. The reason why that's important is a lot of the challenges that we have in life around anxiety and other conditions go hand in hand with things like worry about the future and ruminating over the past. And what is probably the biggest lesson for us all to learn when it comes to our mental health and well-being is that the past has passed and you can only learn from it. You can't change it, even though we spend a huge amount of time like trying to want to change it. And the future is both unknown and unknowable. And so if we can bring our focus back to the present moment, even if it's just for 5 minutes, that's going to slowly help you to build those skills of being able to put both the past and the present, the past and the future, into the context of things that are outside of your control. And then just slowly bring your focus back to what you can control, which is this present moment and what you do in this present moment. So that's when people ask me about meditation, I go for it by all means, but I think there's a really easy way to do it, which is just to simply be mindful and to choose to be consciously present in the moment.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Medication, like also sometimes we do in our school. Yeah, that's help sometimes. Yeah. I have one
Fantastic.
last
And how
question.
have you found it?
I think it's pretty great. I feel in the present moment, like for a moment, I feel like I'm in a different mood, different like a feeling that I can stress. Yeah, that's.
Wonderful.
So I have one last question for you.
Okay.
What should a person do, like if the support doesn't help?
That is a very good question. Look, support is really important, and support is a broad term. I consider support to be the kind of general support that you get from your family and your friends and the people that you care about, but also in the context of mental health, ideally support should involve some kind of support from a healthcare professional who's at an appropriate level. So maybe it's just seeing a counselor to be able to talk about things that you're going through, or maybe it's working closely with your doctor or psychiatrist on medication so that you can kind of understand what your options are with that, regardless of whatever support level it is. And I do think there's a huge amount of value in having professional support, because they can be a lot more objective and help you to see things that your parents aren't going to be able to be completely objective, because they love you and they care about you. And so
Yes.
you need to have somebody who can tell you the truth, not what you want to hear. However, you are going to find that there are support people who you just don't get along with, or the support isn't delivering what you need out of it. And so if that happens, seek a second opinion, or if the issue is the person that you're working with, find a different therapist or counselor, whoever it is that you're working with. I think it's important to recognize that you are responsible for what you choose to do to look after your well-being. You can get all of the support that you want from other people or from professionals, but it's going to be down to you to do the work, and that will take time, effort, and perseverance. And if your support network is not providing you what you need, or if the specific medication that you're on or treatment that you're getting is not actually delivering results after a few weeks, and when I say delivering results after a few weeks, it takes longer than that, but you should start to see results within a few weeks, hopefully, then speak up and be assertive about what you need. I think you can do that in a way that is kind, but that is also quite open, and that says, hey, this is what I need. I'm not getting it at the moment. And so you need to put yourself as the number one priority in your mental health and well-being, because the reality is that if you don't make yourself a priority in your well-being, nobody is going to do it for you. You
That's
need to
true.
be the one to drive the
Yeah,
situation.
yeah, that's absolutely true, and that was some great information right there. So, in wrapping up, would you name 5 useful tips that can support youth in being mentally well?
Absolutely. So I've got a few that I will say are my go-tos. The first is kind of what I said before: make your mental health your number one priority, because if you don't, nobody will. So if you think about it as like looking after your physical fitness, looking after your body is no different to looking after your mind, and both contribute to your greater well-being. So just don't ignore physical over mental, or vice versa, because this is my next tip, which is that it's about finding balance in all things. And the more you can find balance, the more of a sense of calm and satisfaction that you'll be able to sort of build in life. And then the other sort of three that I would say that are really big is focus on your priorities. And by that, I mean understanding what truly matters to you. And if it matters, then make it matter. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. And so when I talk about what matters and what your priorities are, for the majority of people, when I say to them, okay, what matters most to you in life, most people are going to start talking about the people that they care about, family, friends, that our pets, the things that we think matter on a day-to-day basis probably don't really matter in the big scheme of things. So turn your attention back to what genuinely matters and make that your priority. The next thing I would say is simplicity, because the less complicated things are in life, the less complicated things are. And that means that it's going to be a lot easier for you to create a sense of calm and peace of mind. And then my last tip is the biggest one, which is to give yourself permission to make mistakes in life, because you're going to make mistakes. I will guarantee you that you are going to make mistakes, because nobody is perfect. And mistakes are actually how we learn. So rather than trying to be perfect and putting unrealistic expectations on yourself, it's okay to make mistakes. The main thing is that you learn from them, because the only true failure in life is a mistake that you don't learn from.
I think that's some great tip I've ever heard in mental health. Thank you. Thank you for joining the show. We learned so much from you. I'll
Thank
now
you very
turn
much for
back.
having me.
Yeah, I'll now turn back the show to Anita. Thank you.
Hello there. Hello. What a
Hello.
wonderful episode. I am really I was backstage just listening, and I wanted to just share a couple of, you said some really important things that I just want to share. Um Tip that you mentioned early on in the process is to take an honest look at any unhealthy habits and address the issues, as they will help to improve and impact your overall well-being. You were very gracious enough to share, your journey, your process, and some of the things that were unhealthy, and how you were, continuing to improve in that area. But you had to face the truth within yourself in order to be better and be well overall, which is really awesome. Practice mindfulness. I have a good friend that is in this space of mindfulness, and she teaches us, breathing exercises, combining that with just um, being present in the moment. And I like how you really stated to choose to be consciously present in your life. And being a huge advocate of your overall well-being, because the truth is, we are really responsible for how we show up in this space. We really are. There are some things that we need tools and help for, but the reality is that we are ultimately responsible. So I really appreciated you mentioning that. And finally, your realistic tips, which I was like, yes, I'm going to make sure that I add some of these things to my overall, because making your mental health is a priority. And what I am now allowing myself to say, it's no longer an optional. You have to, improve on yourself. I just so happen to be a mother. So if I am not well, and if I am not taking care of myself, the reality is I'm not going to do well for others, even though it may
Absolutely.
be perceived. You have to do well for yourself. Finding balance in all things, right? What does
Mm.
that look like specifically for you as the individual? As I heard you mention, you can't measure yourself with what on the basis of what other folks are doing. You have to find that and center it within yourself. Understand what truly matters to you, right? And when you mention family, because you're right, typically we always mention family, not really connecting the dots that if we ourselves are not well, are not healthy, are not taking care of ourselves, then those things that we appreciate and love really won't matter unless we're taking care of ourselves and showing up in that space. Simplicity. I was like, how do I deal with that? You know, how do you deal with just being,
Mm,
being in that space of giving yourself permission, being simplistic? Like, I just really appreciate how thoughtful you were with your tips. But I think the biggest thing out of, um, all were important and all are super useful, but the fact that we are human and that we make mistakes, and the reality is that, as a business coach, what I teach is that we're going to fail in our process of entrepreneurship, and that is a part of business. The idea in business is to learn from your mistakes quickly. Right, in business, in life, sometimes it does take time, specifically
mm.
when you're wrestling with challenges. So, in business, there's a similar model, but when you're dealing it when it from a human perspective on day to day, we have to give ourselves permission to be human. And that's no longer, again, optional for us to be useful and healthy and also still growing human beings. So I want to personally send a huge shout out to you, Jeremy, and to
Thank
just
you.
and say thank you for supporting this process. I happen to have subscribed and also am now watching your online show because I was introduced to your show as a result of my youth ambassadors introducing me to you. But your shows are wonderful, and I'm
Thank you.
encouraging all to like, share, and support Jeremy's online show. Is actually called Let's Talk About Mental Health. Um, does have a website. The website is there. So I would definitely, offer a very authentic perspective and also sharing the truth about his experiences. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been a great conversation. It's really good to chat to you both.
All right, awesome. Well, I'm going to say so long because, why should we keep you? Bye.
So long.
Bye bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye. Have a good day.
All right. Bye bye. And so the beauty again is that we have these useful conversations about this space that we're in. As we've learned, specifically, the pandemic has taught us that, we really need to elevate and normalize the conversations about what being overall mentally well looks like. It is different from a 7-year old's perspective because what I've also learned that, you know, children experience anxiety and trauma as well. That can, if not supported, can lead into adult unhealed trauma. So we have to make sure that throughout the process that we are supporting each other, listening to one another and sharing, the things that we know that we can share with one another. A listening ear, having conversation, seeking ways that we can make our mental health, overall wellness, and being a priority. And so I just wanted to elevate those tips again because I thought that they were really useful. Again, make your mental health a priority. Find balance in the things that are meaningful and are necessary and needed for you to level out and get through things. Understand what really and truly matters to you. Keeping it simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, but sometimes when you're going through whatever challenges that you are experiencing at that time, the little things are some of the things that can actually help you to start to improve during that time and space. And again, I'm a huge advocate of saying in business, specifically to my clients, that, it's okay to fail and that failure is a normal part of the business process. But the reality is, when you are thinking about this space of, you know, um, growing as an overall human holistically, that giving ourselves to permissions to make mistakes is the basis after how we learn and how we grow. And sometimes those mistakes or challenges may take some time to work through them, but allowing and knowing that it won't be like that always will give yourself, at least in my opinion, a little bit more hope to help you to navigate forward. I wanted to also, elevate again that there were some other tips that were elevated. Practice mindfulness. One of the examples that was brought to the table was breathing exercises, meditating. Really thinking about, doing things and set aside time, specifically to be present in your life. And throughout this process, advocate for yourself. If things are if you happen to take medication to help to resolve some of your current concerns, and if you find that maybe it's not working, talk to your medical provider and say that these things are not working. It is important that you know and also to communicate, advocate for yourself in those certain situations. If you can't do it, find a trusted person who can help to support you during your process. And one of the other things that comes up often, and what we know, and a lot of times we may not want to talk about it, is those unhealthy habits or ugly things that may be actually contributing to our deepening anxiety and concerns that we may have. um, those unhealthy habits, what was elevated here in this conversation, alcohol or substance abuse, um, does play a role in how you feel overall. We may not want to agree, but it does, impact our overall well-being. So take a look at those things that are causing you to feel, imbalanced, off-centered, and take and have the courage to look at it and address those things, because reality is they really do impact your overall well-being, how you deal with yourself, how you deal with others, and all of that, collectively does have an impact. So I want to again just say, thank you to our guest. His information is here. He has a show called Let's Talk About Mental Health. Had an opportunity to check out a couple of his shows. They're really good. He's Australia based, so it was really kind of dope to connect with someone on the other side of the world, specifically for this show. So I want to salute all of my youth ambassadors. They did a very courageous and phenomenal job in talking specifically about mental health. If you've been following this series with our youth ambassadors from 11375, they have shared a lot of their personal experiences. One, that we've created a space where we are normalizing the conversations about mental health. And my disclaimer is that I am not a licensed professional. I have my own shared experiences in dealing with this space, but the goal is to provide a platform where one is comfortable to share information that can help someone else during this process, because these past couple of years, it's undescribable. But collectively, if we are intentional about supporting one another, we will all be okay. And like Jada said, we gonna make it. So on that note, I want to thank you all for joining the Brownsville Minute. It has been really a pleasure to have you all support our young people during this process. I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Please like, share, and support the Brownsville Minute. And also, if you happen to see our youth leaders around town, just shout them out and tell them how awesome of a job that they've done, sharing and also supporting their overall wellness. So thank you so much for joining the Brownsville Minute. I look forward to seeing you again soon.